Anytime that we continue talking about threat intelligence, it's also notable to also take into account the different types of threat actors that are potentially available to us. So I've got 6 boxes here, and in these 6 boxes, we're going to cover the 6 different types of threat actors. And the very first one that you may have already guessed it are our APT and nation states. Um, Now, APTs and nation states are kind of, as we've seen before and we've spoken about, they're backed by different organizations within the government, right? So you may have different nations, and they're sort of typically targeting other areas or other geographical locations of governments and stuff like that. So APTs are kind of and always sort of, the highly financial backed. There's obviously ends amounts of skill set and capabilities along with timing. Now, often at times, anytime we're doing security consulting or providing security services, one of the challenges with time. Meaning that some customers don't have a big budget to support large amounts of projects, or sometimes we're restricted if we're doing a pen test or if we're doing a red team activity. We're kind of really restricted into the sort of that time bound approach where instead of having maybe 6 months to do a proper scope of assessment and a proper delivery of that assessment in 6 months, you may have to shorten that down to maybe 4 weeks, which one kind of it sort of impacts the quality of the assessment, but also the actual timing and the availability of what we're going to be delivering during that 6 months, opposed to that actual 4 weeks or a month of actual deliverables. So just keep that in mind. APT nation states kind of go into, the persistent side of things. So they're always quite ruthless when we talk about persistence. And if we're talking and referencing again the MITRE framework, when we look at TA003, so our persistence tactic, and then within that, we've got other sub areas that we can start looking at, which are things like our T1547, which talks more around boot and auto starting of execution. So things like if we're putting things in run keys where the machines start to boot up, what are the different types of ways that we can then just finish writing this out. What are the different types of ways that we can then persist into an environment? And if we look at that, there's different sort of tactics, and then obviously different sub tactics within that, which are things like boot and auto start login executions, right? There's other things like time providers, win login helpers, DLL. So if we're going to hijack DLL functions, how are we subjective to that? And then what are the controls that we're going to be putting in? So kind of the big area with nation state is that persistence. They may be idle for 6 months, 12 months, or longer into a system with multiple pivot access and multiple persistence across that environment. And then once they get that phone call or now it's the time to show up, that's the whole point of that. It's being unseen, idle in the environment, collecting the data, understanding how the systems operate. And then when the time calls, then they can show up and show out, right? So just think about that. So persistence, and I would say timing is the other big area for APT. There's infinite amount of timing where when we're in sort of engagements, if we're doing credential stuffing or brute forcing attacks, we may have maybe half a day to be performing these attacks, or maybe a day, depending on the length and the brevity of the actual assessment. So having said that, if I've got now 6 months just to sit there and try and brute force their SSH keys, that is time that I then have to be doing that. In most common examples of us delivering this through an engagement, we don't have that luxury. So, persistence, time, these are all the nation states type of, special entries. And this is where I guess threat hunting comes into play. So looking for, our indicators of compromise, researching and understanding our TTPs, our threat tactics and procedures, how they look, and obviously looking for those breadcrumbs that we've previously defined in other videos. So that's pretty much it when we talk about APTs and nation states. The next area that we're going to jump into is our insider threats. So that's another type of threat actor that we need to be mindful of. And I'm just going to minimize this screen and pull up another article that was just released not long ago. And this was from the AFP have released this, saying that was a third-party IT contractor arrested for $90,000 of fraud. And what causes insider threats to be malicious? Well, there's a number of things, right? They could be motivated by, there's revenge of some sort. There may be, anger, maybe hatred towards maybe their peers or other people. There's literally a laundry list of types of threats that potentially will cause insiders to be that malicious, right? So anytime we factor in, if we talk about threating, if we talk about our insider threats, if we talk about basically their, um, I guess what the motivation drivers are, well, we've got potentially anger. Maybe they don't like the manager, maybe they don't like the peers or team or their environment or the environment itself or the culture of the business. It could be maybe monetary, maybe they're underpaid. And obviously comes into maybe them being, some sort of revenge of some sort. Maybe they had wrongdoing with someone within a different team or different parts of the organization, and then they're going to act out and play out. So going back to the article, you can start to see that, you can see the dates. Let me just get my pen out here. So we've got the 3rd of March, 2023. So it's fairly recent. Let me just undo that. Back to my mouse. Clear the screen. So let's just continue from this section just here. So I'm just going to read on from this part over here. And obviously you guys can research this yourself. Just look at AFP, National Maritime Museum, and then the IT support, person that was involved with this. So, basically they had access to essentially was a payroll platform, and then they could enter, their credentials, or they entered their bank details into sort of, be routed that information or be routed the payment details. So when we talk about insider threats, again, we need to be highly mindful that there are people within the organization that, have access to, when we talk about contractors, we've got third-party, vendors that have access to our corporate environments, or even our internal users. Everyone has access to sensitive information of that, and there are different types of controls that we can be implementing, from physical, from administrative to technical. A big one is the separation of duties, ways that this could have been, separation of duties, a way that this could have been, I guess, also remediated and mitigated would be that, implement separation of duties is a big area, because you don't want someone having all access and all controls across environments. You may have to split that function up into multiple parts, where someone may have the ability to create something but not modify and delete. And then you may have someone that has the access to modify but cannot create and delete, and vice versa, right? So there are multiple areas of that function that you can separate out and create that separation of duties, along with, least privilege, and not giving anyone more access than they need to complete their actual job function. Now, if this had all those controls in place, and something went terribly wrong along the way, there's other types of controls like the IT policies. If we've had control policies and we had a proper segmentation across user monitoring, password management, third-party access management, internal network security, maybe the VLANs or private VLANs, or the segmentation wasn't done correctly, there are whole areas across the environment that could potentially cause insider threats, and they all need to be dutifully integrated and supported with enterprise risk management framework as well, that we can start to support and be understanding, and obviously notice that insider threats can also potentially cause harm and disruption. Now, the other component here is our competitors. Something that is sometimes overlooked is our competitor advantages, and these guys are kind of always focused on the money. Now, if you operate within, a certain industry, you may be, or that organization may be that only, organization that has a specific, proprietary technology. If they're in high financial, markets, for example, and they've developed a trading platform that really is a tier above the rest of the other trading platform providers, or whatever that sort of approach may be, the competitors in that term become malicious, right? So they can cause, we've got market domination as one. because if you are now one of 4 vendors or one of 4 people in that industry, well, chances are if you can become the only monopoly in that area, well, then one, you've got the money and you've got the market dominance. That increases your that increases your financials, right? So, from a competitive advantage, it's often seen as maybe that intellectual property, people are looking to steal and gain that information. So I'm just going to put steal, gain intellectual property information. Now, another area that we need to be mindful of as well is, if I talk about this area down here, are our hacktivists. Now, hacktivists are all about beliefs, right? Whether it's good causes, whether it's environmental, and their main thing is they're going to fight for their cause, right? That's all that hacktivists care about. If they're fighting for something that they care about, they're going to put up a fight about it. The next part over here are our script kiddies. When we talk about script kiddies, people kind of underlook or turn a blind eye with script kiddies, and sometimes you kind of need to be the other way, because you need to know they exist. One is because these guys are kind of amateurs, right? And now, with the problem with the amateurs is they're driven by curiosity, is the other part. Now, with curiosity comes the thrill of the hunt, right? So these guys are kind of always scouring for things. Maybe they're using different tool sets. They don't understand how to use that tool set, or they're missing certain information. With script kiddies, they're potentially going to be launching attacks if they find something that's online. So if they're doing Google Talking and they're looking for redirection of web pages, or they're looking for vulnerable PHP pages and they're just filtering out by the company names, or they're looking at a specific part of that exploit that's available. So if they just look at, let's find a bunch of web pages that have a PHP login page that could be malicious, I can just go into Google and then filter that out with Google Docs. So for me, that maybe for someone that doesn't know what they're doing, they can potentially start putting one on one together, but then launching those types of attacks against maybe if a certain landing page or a certain URL comes available on that site, and they're going to now launch a PHP denial of service attack or do something malicious with our web content, then we need to be mindful that script kiddies do exist and they're around who are randomly attacking different things. And the final part here is our organized crime. Now, organized crime is such a big area for our threat actors and threat acting activities. I think when we start talking about organized crime, the only thing that sort of comes to our mind is money, right? We've got commodity malware that's available. We can go online and buy malware off the shelf, or go to a malware as a service, which is a tremendously big industry, and you can buy this platform, and then that will infect if we're going to be targeting certain machines, these machines will call back to that that bot control service or whoever that malware vendor is, and then we can come along, we can then log into that service and then do our C2 into those machines to then operate and command and control them as we see fit. So when we start talking about organized crime, just continue to think of this as sort of it's a highly lucrative, highly financial backed industry, and all they're going to care about is buying and selling of these services, whether it's proxy services, whether it's malware as a service services. And I've got some examples here that I want to also cover as well, because anytime we cover, the world of organized crime, there's a bunch of different forums that we can go to. And I'm not condoning any organized crime activity or anything like that. It's just these are forums that have been around for many, many years. They've got some great from educational purposes, content on there that you can go in. These are a researcher forums, as well as, I don't like particularly using the word hacker, but these are security research forums where people are looking for zero-day exploits. They're looking for malware. They're looking for exploits of some sort. It could be carding as well, access of sales, credential databases, things like that. So I've just gone away and I've sort of taken some screenshots, and we'll just cover a couple of these in just a minute as well. So the first one here is xss.io, and this is a very popular, it's a Russian hacker platform. It's again more of a community-based forum itself, and it comes from the acronym of cross-site scripting. So XSS is a form of web application vulnerability, and this sort of forum covers things from exploits to 0 days to malware to penetration testing, all that side of things, malware exploits. It's a very active community. And over here, you can see like the Avas Locker ransomware group are pretty much recruiting for people to commit cybercrime activity. And if you go away and, you can also translate a bit of that out, you can start to see comments here that people are recruiting people to be part of these ransomware groups. So that's just one example. Again, I'm not condoning that you go online and sign up and be part of this. This is just for educational purposes and just sort of raising a bit of awareness into the other forums that exist. So the other one here that we have is breached.co. Breached.co has been around for many years. It was previously, I think, found from Raid Forums, which was seized a couple of years ago, and then Purin, and then launched, breached.co. And again, very similar to, XSS.io, XSS.is, another platform where you can find databases of of records. Previously these guys have found and leaked 120,000 emails of database of emails from other forum users. So you can see here is they've leaked a partner, a rival forum, and then they've gone away and they've leaked databases and passwords of that forum. So just be aware of that. Dread is the next one that we've got coming up. So Dread is a Tor-based dark web forum. Now, I didn't put a link here because it is Tor-based, and I don't want to put the Onion route, the Onion link in the message. But you guys can go away, you can look at it. Not again condoning it, but just to know that it does exist. And over here, they're talking about things from, how do we test malware on Windows systems? So you can start to picture these things together, where you've got people that are uploading and sending out database of informations of passwords, cracking. There's marketplaces, there's tutorials, there's scripts. There are endless amounts of forum comments and obviously topics that we can all be part of and obviously consume for educational reasons as well. Another popular one is null.to. Null has been around for many years. I think it's probably the most active forum out there. I think it's got over 4 million, 4 million users to date. It's a really popular, amazing, community. Very intelligent, very smart people. Things from cracking programs to database dumps to stolen accounts, hacking tools, vulnerabilities, tutorials, everything else. So here is a platform called Vape. Here is a tool set called Vape4. This is, I think, this is a cracked version, or a person is claiming to have cracked the VapeGG download. So you can go away, download that. That's a Minecraft extension of some sort. I'm not a gamer or anything like that, so excuse me if I'm not getting the right terminology there. But it looks like it is a crack to then go away and have additional features within Minecraft. So. Finally, we have cracked.io, and cracked.io again has been around for many years. Again, you've got things that we're talking about here. People are posting profiles from platforms saying, yes, we've got access to multiple accounts from XYZ domain, and then they've went away and they just pretty much dumped them. So just know these forums do exist. They're available. You can go away and you can research, which I do heavily encourage you to go away and research, not obviously be part of any malicious activity. Now, the final part here is, I just want to bring this up because when we start talking about organized crime, things are often for sale, right? People are, creating malwares to evade, certain vendors in the market and things like that. So I'm just here on a website called Evil Extractor, and as you can see that there's this vendor is claiming to have, and do multiple things, right? There are Windows-based operating system attacks. And then Evil Extractor can do a range of different things. We can do credential extraction is one of them. We can do keylogging bypassing. We can do file extractions. We can do 2FA bypassing. We can do defender bypassing and all that kind of stuff. And then you can go away and actually buy it and then utilize it, which if you just go here and buy, when it wakes up. And I might just pause the screen until it comes back. And there we are. So, you can go on there and then you can buy and have a look at the different services that are available to to utilize this platform. So, the dark market, when we start talking about forums and marketplace and stuff like that, it really is a commodity-driven environment. People are buying these things off the shelf. They're utilizing them even if they're script kiddies. People want to be testing and obviously buying these things out. So hopefully this has shared a bit of value to you. Thank you for viewing. If you have any questions in the comments, please drop them down below. And I thank you for viewing.